I want to tell you a story tonight that's been whispered across centuries, passed down through generations of people who understood something profound about dreams and destiny. It's a story that begins in ancient India, in a kingdom nestled against the Himalayan mountains, during a time when the world looked very different from what we know today. Let me introduce you to someone who lived over 2,500 years ago. Her name was Queen Maya, and she was the wife of King Suddhodana, the ruler of the Shakya kingdom. The Shakyas were a warrior clan, respected and powerful, living in what's now Nepal and northern India. They weren't the largest kingdom in the region, but they held their own with dignity and strength. King Suddhodana was known as a capable leader, someone who made careful decisions and protected his people well. Queen Maya was no ordinary woman. She came from nobility herself, the daughter of a respected family, and she'd been raised with education and spiritual awareness. By all accounts, she was thoughtful, compassionate, and deeply spiritual. She understood the teachings of the Vedas, the ancient spiritual texts of her time. She participated in rituals and ceremonies with genuine devotion, not just as duty, but as something that truly mattered to her. Now, here's what makes this moment in history so significant. Around the year 563 BCE, Queen Maya was in her mid-40s. In that era, having a child at that age was unusual and, frankly, unexpected. Yet she and the king longed for an heir, someone to continue their line and eventually rule the kingdom. This wasn't just about succession, though that mattered. For them, it was about legacy, about creating something that would outlast them. The kingdom itself was thriving during this period. Trade routes connected the Shakyas to other regions, bringing goods, ideas, and cultural exchange. The palace where Queen Maya lived reflected this prosperity. It was beautiful, with courtyards and gardens, quarters for the royal family and their attendants. The architecture showed both strength and refinement, thick walls for protection, but also open spaces where light could pour in. This is the world we're stepping into, a world before modern technology, before electricity, before the constant noise that fills our lives today. A world where the night sky was truly dark, where stars blazed overhead with a clarity we've almost forgotten. A world where dreams held tremendous significance, where people believed that the divine could speak through sleep and visions. It's into this world, on a particular night during the full moon of the month of Vesak, that our story truly begins. Queen Maya is about to experience something that will change not just her life, but the course of human history itself. The days leading up to Vesak had filled the palace with a particular kind of energy. Servants moved through corridors carrying flowers, stringing garlands of jasmine and marigold across doorways and courtyards. The festival honoring the Buddha-to-be, though no one knew that yet, required weeks of preparation. Oil lamps needed to be cleaned and filled. Food had to be prepared for the celebrations. Every corner of the palace reflected this careful attention to detail. Queen Maya had overseen much of this herself. Her role extended far beyond simply being the king's wife. She managed the household, made decisions about ceremonies and rituals, and served as a spiritual guide for the women of the court. People came to her with questions about proper conduct, about how to honor the gods, about matters of the heart. She took these responsibilities seriously, understanding that her position carried weight and influence. But underneath all this activity, something else occupied her thoughts. She thought about what it might mean to finally hold a child of her own. She'd waited so long. Years had passed, and she'd begun to wonder if motherhood would ever come to her. She knew the whispers. People questioned whether the gods had blessed her with fertility. Some suggested that perhaps the king should take another wife, someone younger. These thoughts troubled her more than she admitted to anyone. In the quiet moments, usually in the early morning before the household stirred, she'd sit in the temple room and pray. She didn't pray with desperation or anger. Instead, she approached the divine with respect and openness. If it's meant to be, she'd think, then I'm ready. I've prepared myself spiritually. I've lived with integrity. I've honored the teachings. Yet she couldn't help but hope. That hope lived in her chest, steady and persistent, like a flame that refused to go out. The Vesak festival held special meaning for her. It celebrated the birth of great spiritual teachers, the triumph of wisdom over ignorance. She believed deeply in the power of this time. The full moon seemed to carry something sacred. Ancient texts spoke of how the veil between the earthly and divine grew thin during such nights. She'd read these passages many times, and they resonated with something deep inside her. As evening approached on the night before her dream, Maya performed her usual rituals. She bathed carefully, using water infused with sandalwood. She dressed in clean white garments, simple but elegant. She ate lightly, some rice, fruit, and milk, nothing heavy that might disturb her sleep. These practices weren't superstition to her. They represented a way of honoring both her body and her spirit, of preparing herself to be a vessel for whatever the divine might offer. She made her way to her sleeping quarters as the palace grew quiet. The servants had finished their tasks. The king had retired to his own chambers. The night deepened around her, and she lay down on her bed, surrounded by silk cushions. Her mind settled gradually, moving from the concerns of the day toward something quieter, something more open. She didn't know what would come. She simply lay there, ready. Sleep came to Queen Maya gradually, then all at once. One moment, she lay conscious in her chamber, aware of the silk beneath her, the darkness around her. The next moment, something shifted. The boundary between waking and sleeping dissolved in a way that felt completely natural, as though she'd simply stepped through a doorway she hadn't noticed before. Dreams don't announce themselves with fanfare. They simply exist, and you find yourself within them. But this dream felt different from the ordinary kind that fade upon waking. This one possessed a clarity and weight that made it feel more real than reality itself. The air around her seemed to vibrate with intention. She could perceive things with a precision that exceeded normal sight. Colors more vivid, forms more defined, presences more unmistakable. 4 celestial beings materialized before her. They didn't arrive gradually or emerge from shadows. They simply occupied the space, as though they'd always been there and she'd only just become aware of them. Each one radiated an authority that came from existing in realms beyond the ordinary world. They moved with purpose, with the confidence of those who knew exactly what they'd come to accomplish. These weren't human figures, though they possessed forms that the mind could grasp. They carried themselves with a dignity that transcended physical description. Light emanated from them, not harsh or blinding, but warm and encompassing. In the Buddhist texts that would later record this moment, they're described as divine guardians, celestial beings tasked with sacred duties. They existed to serve the unfolding of destiny, to facilitate the will of the cosmos itself. Maya understood, without anyone speaking, that they'd come for her. More than that, she grasped that their arrival signified something momentous. She felt no fear in their presence, only a profound sense of rightness. Her mind, even in the dream state, recognized that this transcended ordinary experience. She thought to herself, "This is real. This is happening. This matters in ways I can't yet fully comprehend." The beings moved toward her with gentle deliberation. Their intention communicated itself without words. They'd come to take her somewhere, to prepare her for something that required divine intervention. She rose from her bed, or perhaps she simply found herself standing without the act of rising. The mechanics of the dream didn't follow earthly logic. They surrounded her, not threateningly, but protectively. Each being took a position, and together they began to lift her upward. The palace walls dissolved around her. The familiar chamber with its oil lamps and silk furnishings faded into irrelevance. She ascended, moving through layers of existence that had no names in ordinary language. The transformation of space happened instantaneously and gradually at once. Below her, the kingdom of the Shakyas grew smaller, then disappeared entirely. She rose past the earthly realm into dimensions that existed beyond normal perception. The sky itself changed character. It became deeper, richer, infused with colors that don't exist in the waking world. Stars blazed with an intensity that suggested they were alive, conscious, aware of her passage. The four beings carried her higher still, moving with purpose toward a destination she couldn't yet see, but somehow already knew. They were taking her to Mount Anotatta, the sacred mountain of the Himalayas, the place where heaven touched earth. She understood this with absolute certainty, the kind of knowing that requires no explanation or proof. The journey had begun. As they ascended, Maya passed through layers of existence that the ancient Buddhist texts describe in intricate detail. The first realm they traversed held palaces and gardens that surpassed anything constructed by human hands. Structures of crystal and gold rose in impossible geometries. Their architecture defied the laws of physics she understood from the earthly realm. Beings of light moved through these spaces, attending to purposes she couldn't quite grasp, but somehow recognized as important. Higher still, the landscape transformed into something less defined by physical form. Here, reality itself seemed more fluid, more responsive to consciousness. Colors existed that had no names, hues that shifted between states, that contained depth and dimension beyond what eyes could normally perceive. The four celestial beings navigated this realm with absolute certainty, never hesitating, never questioning their path. Mount Anotatta emerged gradually into her awareness. The ancient texts speak of it as the highest mountain in the world, the place where heaven and earth meet most directly. It rose from the landscape with an authority that made all other mountains seem like mere foothills by comparison. Its peaks touched dimensions beyond the visible, extending into realms of pure consciousness and divine energy. Snow covered its slopes, but this wasn't ordinary snow. It gleamed with an inner luminescence, reflecting light that came from no identifiable source. The beings descended toward the mountain's heart, where Lake Anotatta occupied a sacred space. This lake held significance that extended far beyond its physical existence. According to Buddhist cosmology, it represented the source of all waters, the primordial pool from which life itself emerged. 4 rivers flowed from it in the cardinal directions, nourishing the world below. The lake's waters possessed properties that transcended ordinary hydrology. They could purify not just the body, but the spirit itself, washing away impurities that clung to the soul. As they approached, Maya perceived the lake's surface. It reflected light in ways that created an effect of infinite depth. Looking into it, she sensed she could see through countless layers of reality simultaneously. The water itself appeared crystalline, so clear that she could perceive far below its surface to depths that seemed to extend into infinity. Yet it also held a quality of mystery, suggesting that some things within it remained forever hidden from ordinary sight. The beings brought her to the lake's edge and lowered her gently. Maya stood on ground that felt both solid and ethereal. She recognized this moment for what it represented: a threshold, a turning point, a place where the ordinary rules of existence no longer applied. She thought to herself, "I'm being prepared for something. The divine has chosen me for a purpose I don't yet understand, but I'm ready to receive it." The mountain surrounded her on all sides, its presence both protective and awe-inspiring. The air itself seemed charged with intention. Everything about this place communicated that it existed outside normal times and space, that it operated according to principles that transcended human understanding. She'd read about such places in the sacred texts, but experiencing it directly proved entirely different from mere intellectual knowledge. The four beings positioned themselves around her, their forms glowing with renewed intensity. They'd brought her to the right place. Everything that would follow would happen here, in this sacred space where the boundaries between worlds grew thin enough to cross. The purification was about to begin. The four beings moved with synchronized grace, each one understanding their role in the ritual that was about to unfold. Two of them approached Maya from either side, while the other two positioned themselves at the lake's edge. Their movements communicated reverence and purpose. This ceremony mattered, not just to them, but to the cosmic order itself. Maya stepped into the waters of Lake Anotatta. The liquid embraced her immediately, responding to her presence as though it recognized her. The temperature registered as neither hot nor cold, but perfectly calibrated to her being. The water itself seemed alive, conscious, aware of what it needed to accomplish. As she descended deeper, the four beings began to pour the sacred waters over her, performing ablutions that extended far beyond ordinary bathing. This ritual held profound meaning in Buddhist tradition. Purification didn't simply mean removing physical dirt or impurities. It represented the cleansing of karma, the washing away of spiritual obstacles that accumulated through countless lifetimes. The waters of Anotatta possess the capacity to dissolve these accumulated burdens, to prepare the body and spirit for transformation. With each pouring of water, Maya felt something shifting within her consciousness. Doubts she'd carried for years seemed to dissolve. Fears about her worthiness, her capacity to bear a child, her role in the unfolding of destiny. All of these released their hold on her. The beings continued their work with meticulous attention. They understood that every gesture, every movement, every moment of this preparation carried significance. They weren't simply going through motions. They were facilitating a metamorphosis that would alter the trajectory of human history itself. Maya recognized this in some deep part of her awareness. She understood that she stood at a crossroads between her ordinary life and something far greater. As the ritual progressed, the beings lifted her from the water. Her body emerged, transformed. The water had done more than cleanse her physically. It had refined her at every level of existence. She felt lighter, more luminous, as though the divine light that surrounded the four beings now radiated from within her as well. They dressed her in garments that transcended ordinary clothing. These robes seemed to be woven from light itself, from the substance of the celestial realms. The fabric draped around her with perfect grace, conforming to her body while maintaining an ethereal quality. The colors shifted subtly, whites and golds and silvers that suggested rather than proclaimed their presence. These weren't clothes meant for the earthly realm. They marked her as someone who'd been touched by the divine, someone who'd crossed into sacred territory and been remade by the experience. Maya stood in her new garments, feeling the transformation as complete. She thought to herself, "I'm no longer the woman who fell asleep in the palace. Something fundamental has changed. I've been prepared, refined, made ready for a purpose that extends beyond my own understanding." She didn't feel fear or uncertainty. Instead, she experienced a profound sense of rightness, of alignment with something larger than herself. The four beings stepped back, observing their work. Their expressions, if such beings could be said to have expressions, conveyed satisfaction and anticipation. The preparation had reached its culmination, but the dream itself continued to deepen. Something more significant still awaited her. The night of wonders had only just begun. The landscape around Lake Anotatta shifted. The four celestial beings parted, creating space for something new to enter. From the mist that rose from the sacred mountain, a form emerged, massive yet graceful, powerful yet gentle. A white elephant approached across the ethereal terrain, moving with a deliberation that suggested complete awareness of its purpose. This creature transcended anything Maya had encountered in the earthly realm. Its body gleamed with a luminescence that came from within, rather than reflecting external light. The elephant's ivory tusks curved with perfect symmetry, and its eyes held an intelligence that suggested consciousness, far exceeding that of ordinary animals. Every movement communicated nobility and spiritual authority. The elephant didn't simply walk. It seemed to glide, its massive form somehow weightless in this realm beyond normal physics. The elephant carried something precious. Held gently in its trunk was a white lotus flower, unblemished and perfect. The lotus held profound significance in Buddhist tradition, representing purity, enlightenment, and the triumph of the spirit over material existence. This particular flower appeared to embody all these qualities in concentrated form. Its petals unfolded with mathematical precision, each one identical to the others, creating a mandala of perfection. The flower's whiteness exceeded that of snow or milk or any earthly substance. It possessed a quality of absolute purity that seemed to contain all other colors within it. The elephant approached Maya with measured steps. There existed no threat in its demeanor, only purpose and compassion. She stood perfectly still, understanding without instruction that she should remain open to what was about to occur. The four beings watched in silence, their roles in this moment complete. What happened next belonged to the elephant and to Maya alone. The elephant drew near, its massive form towering above her. It extended its trunk with exquisite gentleness, bringing the white lotus flower closer. The flower's fragrance reached Maya, not an ordinary scent, but something that seemed to carry the essence of all gardens, all growth, all renewal. The elephant's eyes met hers, and in that moment, she perceived the depth of what was happening. This creature carried within it the intention of the divine cosmos itself. It had come to facilitate the most sacred of all acts, the conception of a being who would transform human understanding. The elephant moved with purpose toward her right side. In Buddhist texts, the right side holds particular significance, representing auspiciousness and divine favor. The elephant, still holding the lotus flower, entered her body from this direction. The act transcended physical mechanics. It occurred simultaneously at every level of her existence: body, mind, spirit, consciousness. Light filled her completely, a radiance that seemed to emanate from her very core. Maya understood with absolute clarity what had transpired. She thought to herself, "A great being is coming. The divine has chosen me to carry this consciousness into the world. This isn't about me anymore. It's about something infinitely larger, something that will change everything." She felt no fear, only profound gratitude and a sense of being honored beyond measure. The responsibility she'd carry would be immense, but she recognized her readiness for it. The sensation that filled her defied description. It wasn't pain or discomfort, but rather a completion, a sense that something missing had finally been restored. Warmth radiated through her entire being. She felt transformed at the deepest level, marked by the divine in a way that would remain with her forever. Her body now carried within it the seed of enlightenment itself. The elephant withdrew, its purpose accomplished. The white lotus flower had merged with her being. The four celestial guardians moved closer once more, their expressions reflecting satisfaction and reverence. The dream itself began to shift, to lighten, as though the intensity of what had just occurred required a gentle return to ordinary consciousness. The night of wonders approached its culmination. The transition back to waking consciousness happened gradually, like surfacing from deep water. The celestial realms faded, not abruptly, but gently, allowing Maya's awareness to settle back into her physical body. The palace chamber materialized around her, the familiar furnishings, the oil lamps that had burned low through the night, the silk cushions beneath her. Morning light filtered through the windows, suggesting that dawn had arrived while she slept. Maya opened her eyes fully and lay still for several moments. She didn't move immediately or try to rise. Instead, she remained motionless, allowing the dream to settle into her memory with absolute clarity. This wasn't like ordinary dreams that dissolve upon waking, leaving only fragmented impressions and confusion. Every detail remained vivid and intact. The appearance of the four beings, the ascent through celestial realms, the waters of Lake Anotatta, the white elephant and its precious lotus flower. The dream possessed a substantiality that exceeded waking experience itself. She knew with complete certainty that something extraordinary had occurred. This wasn't imagination or fancy. The divine had intervened directly in her life. She thought to herself, "I'm carrying something sacred now. A great being has been placed within me. My life has fundamentally changed, and nothing will ever be the same again." The knowledge didn't frighten her. Instead, it filled her with a profound sense of purpose and acceptance. Maya rose from her bed and made her way through the palace corridors to find King Suddhodana. She moved with quiet determination, her mind already composing how she would convey what had happened. The king was in his chamber, preparing for the day's duties. When she entered, he looked up from his advisors, noting immediately that something significant had occurred. Her bearing communicated it, a kind of radiance, a transformation that couldn't be hidden. She recounted the dream in detail, describing each element with precision. The four celestial beings, the journey to Mount Anotatta, the sacred lake, the purification ritual, the white elephant carrying the lotus flower, the moment of conception itself. The king listened intently, understanding the magnitude of what she described. He'd heard stories from the ancient texts, accounts of how great beings announced their coming through dreams and visions. He recognized the pattern immediately. King Suddhodana summoned the court's wise men and interpreters of dreams. These scholars and spiritual advisors examined the dream's symbolism carefully. The white elephant represented strength and nobility. The lotus flower signified purity and spiritual awakening. The four celestial beings indicated divine sanction. The sacred mountain and its waters pointed to cosmic significance. All the elements aligned to convey a single, unmistakable message. The interpretation emerged clearly. A child of extraordinary spiritual potential would be born to Queen Maya. This wouldn't be an ordinary prince. The texts spoke of such births occurring rarely, perhaps once in countless generations. The child would possess the capacity to become a great teacher, a spiritual guide who would illuminate the path to enlightenment for countless beings. Some interpreters suggested the child might become a universal monarch, a ruler of unparalleled wisdom. Others whispered about even greater possibilities, that this child might transcend ordinary existence entirely. The court received this news with a mixture of awe and reverence. The kingdom had been blessed. The divine had chosen the Shakyas, chosen Queen Maya, chosen King Suddhodana's line to bring forth a being of immense spiritual significance. Preparations began immediately for the child's arrival. The palace buzzed with anticipation and sacred purpose, yet no one could have predicted the full extent of what would unfold. 9 months later, Queen Maya gave birth to a son. The child entered the world in Lumbini Garden, a place of extraordinary beauty and spiritual significance. He would be named Siddhartha Gautama, though history would come to know him by another title entirely: the Buddha, the Awakened One, the one who achieved enlightenment and transformed human understanding of consciousness, suffering, and liberation. The dream that preceded his birth held profound meaning in Buddhist tradition. It wasn't merely a prediction or a curious supernatural event. The dream represented the convergence of multiple dimensions of reality: the earthly and the divine, the personal and the cosmic, the individual and the universal. Through Queen Maya's dream, the sacred realm announced its intention to enter human history in a transformative way. Buddhist texts preserve this account across centuries because it conveyed something essential about how destiny operates. The dream didn't determine Siddhartha's future in a mechanical sense. Rather, it announced what was already unfolding at deeper levels of reality. The divine doesn't impose fate arbitrarily. Instead, it recognizes and facilitates what's already moving toward manifestation. The dream served as a bridge between these levels, allowing Queen Maya to understand her role in something far larger than herself. Think about what this teaches us. We live in a world that often dismisses dreams as mere neurological activity, random firing of synapses during sleep. Yet this ancient story suggests something different: that dreams can carry genuine wisdom, that they can connect us to dimensions of reality beyond ordinary perception. Queen Maya's dream didn't come from her individual mind alone. It arrived from somewhere deeper, from the realm where all possibilities exist simultaneously, where the future reaches back to touch the present. The birth of Siddhartha eventually led to the establishment of Buddhism, a spiritual tradition that would influence billions of people across 2,000 years. His teachings about suffering, its causes, and the path to liberation shaped how countless individuals understood their lives and their relationship to existence itself. None of this would have unfolded without Queen Maya's dream, without her willingness to receive the divine message and carry it into manifestation.